recording now. And turn off the transcription. And hide myself for this. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So for today, I'll go over creating movies, being able to take any image that you load within Arivis, any of these objects that you have segmented out. In this case, it's a neuron tracing. And then being able to turn this into a movie that we can then export and put into a PowerPoint, use for a presentation, etc. The image that I'm using here is the one that we used last week for that neuron tracing. But this can be used, the same kind of process is used for any image that you have within here. And in order to access that movie making module, first we will go into this 4D viewer. And once we hit that, there's a couple of options that pop up. Right up here, these 3 different green looking icons. And I guess I'll also mention this one here too. So this camera icon right here is being able to just take a really quick screenshot of anything that's in this view right here. So anything in the image here, I can take it and it will automatically generate a, I just clicked it, and then it's kind of like a copy and paste sort of thing. So maybe I don't want to do that, but I can put it into, for example, an email. And you can see that we can just copy and paste this right here. So this can be used if you're talking with your group, or you just need to take a really quick screenshot and send that over to a colleague.
Okay.
Don't want to save that. Alternatively, there's this other screenshot grabber right here. It's the same idea. It's going to grab everything that's in this region of interest here in this viewer, but we have a little bit more flexibility in terms of the resolution. So we have this default resolution for HD, but depending on your computer screen, in this case, I have a 4K screen, so the 4K options are lit up here. It should adjust to whatever the screen resolution that you have. It may also be limited by your computer. But point being, I usually just go with this full HD anyways. I usually don't go higher than that because most people don't have a higher resolution screen than this. So it also will take a little bit longer for the software to take the screenshot and scale it up, make it look really high resolution. The other thing that I would recommend is there's this UI and font scaling. So you can see on this viewer that there's numbers here. I don't have a scale bar. Add a scale bar really here. So I'm just adding a scale bar down to this bottom right. And if you want to take this and transfer it over, if I hit just regular, I'll let this load really quick. It's going to look the same size as where we see it in the viewer as is right now. So it's kind of small. Maybe we want to emphasize this a little bit. I would always recommend kind of playing around with this. I usually start with just very large and then kind of work backwards from there. So when I hit very large, you can see that these numbers are a lot more obvious and bigger.
So this rendering is only for this angle, this image, right?
Right. This is just
only for this single view picture.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
So those are the 2 screenshot options. And then if we want to go and create a movie,
just a quick question: how do I get rid of the frames, the XYZ frames, like just showing the sample?
Turning these off.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Good.
Yeah. So there's any of the buttons down here will toggle it. So
okay.
I think it's going to be the coordinates, so kind of the length of where that image is, or the size of that image, and then this will give you the perspectives.
Okay.
Off. Okay. And then if we want to go and create a movie, it's called a storyboard. So we'll go and click this on, and this is the GUI for this. The other thing I'll point out is we have this toggle bookmarks. And this is really useful because think of this as like you're saving your settings in place. So if I hit this plus button, it's going to take this image, it's going to take the objects that I have here, and it's recognizing that there should be this object that's pseudo colored in green, and then we have these red opaque objects overlaid on it, the traces. So if I go and I move this around, maybe I change these color to this. And then go and click them. The colors will not transfer over. So you can see it's going to keep the same perspective. And it's going to keep the intensity information that we have set. So if I kind of lowered this right here and I click that, it will retain that information. But then if I go back and click this, you can see now it's super saturated. So that information will be retained, but the coloring of the objects will be set to however you choose to display them within here. Okay. But this is really useful if you're just going through your images and you're trying to figure out good angles, and maybe you're thinking, oh, this is a really cool angle that I want to show. I'll keep this in mind for later when I'm ready to create a movie based out of this. This way you don't have to reset everything and change your settings. The only thing you'll really have to focus on is just clicking on these, and then changing kind of how you want to view the data instead. So coloring these. There's this button to replace the selected bookmark. So if I have this here, I just press this button, it's going to replace it. And then we can also take in bookmarks and export these. So if you're working on a different computer, or you need to, maybe two people are working on a project together and you kind of want to just send them a pipeline, send them the bookmarks and everything, kind of have them recreate everything. All of those settings are going to be saved within here too. Okay. And that's it for bookmarks, really simple. Okay, so let me change this coloring to something with high contrast. I'll go back to this red. All right. So with this storyboard mode, the nice thing about this is that it's pretty simple in terms of adjusting or changing settings and creating these settings to create the movie that you want. And the reason why it's pretty simple is because it's going to take whatever you see within this viewer right here is what's going to be attached to that storyboard. So it's really just kind of looking for regions that you like. So I'm going to zoom in and maybe I'll start here. Maybe I'll start with like a really far out view of my entire data set. I'll go to this home view. So it's going to kind of bring me to the default view. And then I'll just start with saying, I want to start here. So to add kind of these little points of where you want the movie to transition between, you're going to need to add these keyframes. So this is kind of like my starting point. And then I can go and I can say, let's zoom in and focus on the cell body here. Okay. So I'll add this second keyframe because this is going to be, think of this as like the ending point. So this is going to be my starting point. This is going to be my ending point. There are a couple of options that you see over here on the right. You can pick the duration of these. So the time that it takes to go from this point to this point, you can see it says it takes 5 seconds. So starting at time point 0, this transition from this point to this point is going to take 5 seconds. And then that's why you see here that this point is going to start at the 5-second mark. We can change this duration either through each of these keyframes, or we can go and we can pick up here. There's this option to adjust the target time of the entire movie. So let's say maybe you want to do this, and then maybe we want to zoom out again at this point. So I have a total of 10 seconds in my movie, but let's say I want to condense this all down to 5 seconds. Rather than going through point by point by point and adjusting and then adding, we can just hit this total time. We can say, let's make this 5 seconds, and it'll automatically adjust the keyframes to be split evenly between the keyframes. So then when I go and I hit play, the whole thing will be now 5 seconds. Okay. And again, it's going to take the information that I have shown on here. So if I then add a keyframe here and I turn my objects off and then I hit another keyframe, go back here, hit play, and then you can see at the end they'll pop off. Okay, so when you're creating these movies, just kind of think on, you don't have to worry about the way that it's moving. There are ways that we can adjust it, but
Can you play the movie again? I just want to say, like, when the surface rendering is off, you know?
Yep. Here. And then because I don't have a transition, just going to kind of pop off. But I can show you how to kind of a little transition. So let's say we want to go from here, and then maybe we'll go zoom in a little bit again. This button right here will replace the keyframe. So I'll just hit this, and it'll replace it with my current view. And then we can say, maybe what we can do is do a smooth transition between popping the objects on and off. So one way we can do that is if we turn these objects on, and if we right click on any of the empty spaces in this panel over here, there's this option called 4D clipping. And we can pick essentially the direction, or rather the plane that we want to clip on. So maybe if we want to go across the image, we can pick a Y over Z. We'll hit this color transparent. Maybe not this, maybe we'll do XY. You can stack them. But you can see right here, it's clipping everything, right? So as I move my slider, it's choosing what to take and what to move away. We can also change this angle, but for now, I'll set it to 0. And we also have the option here to, one, change this border of this clipping plane right here. Right now, it's set to green. A little bit of tweaking that you can also do. But here's someone coming in, so let me add them in. But if you want to kind of add it, change it up, little simple thing that you can edit. But the other thing I'll mention is that you can choose to clip just the objects or just the volume data. So this is really nice if maybe you want to show off, maybe I'll clip off volume data. So maybe we want to show the entire image first without any objects rendered, and then we can slowly in our movie build on slowly move through and build it, or vice versa. So maybe I'll do this, add a keyframe here. We'll get rid of it and move kind of back through it again. Right. And then that is going to, it's going to take that information and it's going to interpolate that movement I just made. So I'm hitting play. You can see it's going away. If we want to slow this down or speed it up, we can also do that. Then if I want to pop it back on after the fact, we can do that here too. So going, moving, bringing it back. Or maybe I want to kind of do also a rotation as well. So let me replace this keyframe. And we can kind of combine the two. You'll also notice that for these, they're all kind of moving at a steady pace, the movements.
So I can also turn down the volume rendering intensity to 0 through the movie. Then it would just show the object, like the surface rendering.
So we can kind of do clip objects instead, and then keep the volume, or clip just the volume data, but keep the objects. So if I go and I remove this, now it's going to get rid of my volume underneath. So yeah, either or also works.
Okay.
And you would just select either one of these two options here.
Okay. Thanks.
And you'll notice that these transitions are pretty smooth, right? But we can choose to adjust this. Maybe we want to accelerate this part of it to maybe move a little bit faster. You also might be hard to see, but so it's moving, and then you can kind of see in the beginning that it picks up a little bit faster. So it kind of swings and then slows down towards the end of the movement. So, or you can choose to do a decelerated, or accelerated, decelerated. So it'll kind of move really fast and then slow down at the end, or you can just have a linear movement throughout the entire transition. But your flexibility is kind of in there, depending on how you want to show the data. I don't have any times here.
Yep. I'm sorry, I didn't get to the accelerated and the decelerated thing.
Yep.
If I choose the accelerated, so it's faster at the beginning and then it slow down. Is that?
Yep. So the acceleration is going to be in the beginning of this transition. It's going to move a little bit faster than the second part of that transition, and then decelerated. It's going to be the same thing. It'll move a little bit slower than pick up. So you'll have to kind of figure out how you want to show the data. So if you wanted to like zoom in.
Why we need it?
One more time?
I just wonder at what circumstances we want to do like this.
It's just personal preference. It's so the options here that they kind of give you, like, think of yourself as a director, I guess. It's just total personal preference on if you kind of want to, if you start from, I'll go back to this beginning here. If you want to go from here, this point to this point, do you kind of want to just go really smoothly? Or some people may say, I want it to like zoom in really quickly and then slow down in the last couple of seconds. Because some people not want it to move just linearly, and maybe they want emphasis.
But isn't if we separate it into like two durations, the first one is go fast, and then the second one is go slower, I have more control on it, right?
Yeah, that's why you'll have to kind of decide between your keyframes how you want to set that up, because right here I have it accelerated for this keyframe, but for the one before and the one after, it's set as linear. So it'll move through in this 4-second time period. It'll accelerate in the beginning, but because we have it linear beforehand and linear afterwards, it's probably going to get lost in the mix. It's just kind of, it's still going to move through that. The sequence is the same. It's just kind of how fast you want to move through the sequences at different parts of it. So even though the whole frame is going to be 4 seconds, it's just saying, where do you want to emphasize the transition? Do you want to accelerate it at some point in this 4 seconds, decelerate at some point, kind of do both, or just hold it linear movement throughout the 4 seconds?
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. You can also do the same thing with the other opacity and clipping settings too. So the point being is that there's a lot of flexibility with how you can kind of transition between these points. The other thing is to kind of make this, there's a way that we can kind of speed this up a little bit. So let's say I want to take my data and kind of just do like a rotation 360, or any sort of rotation. What we can do, if I get rid of all of these for now, we can do adding a sequence. And so you're going to start this a sequence at your first time point, or your first beginning of this movie will be again in your viewer here. And then you're picking how you want this rotation to go. In this case, it's defaulting to do 10 seconds to do a rotation on our current view using the horizontal axis. And then you can have this, it's going to go 360 degrees clockwise, I believe. You can do it counterclockwise this way. We only have one time point, so we don't have the option to do a time progression, but if you had 20 time points, you can also have it rotate and move through time as well. So to show that, let's do it for 10 seconds. I'll keep these settings here. And the benefit to this is that it's going to generate the appropriate amount of frames that you need for a smooth transition. Because otherwise it can start to look a little jittery if you don't have enough keyframes in between. So if I go and play this, it automatically does this all for me. So it's going to start and end at the same time point. So maybe you would want to start off with your data like this. Maybe we can then say, let's turn off my do this, and then we will get rid of this objects here. I kind of want to end there. So I want to do a zoom in and also have these objects transition over my raw data. I don't have any spines or anything on this neuron, but this could also be a really nice way of, if you were trying to emphasize some parts of your object rendering, or maybe not even spines, maybe like, let's pretend that this was a cell nucleus and there were some organelles inside of this, maybe, or proteins or whatever. We can then say, get rid of just this part right within here, or just show me this object here, kind of be transparent and glassy looking, so I can see what's on the inside of it. And we can do either or, clip away this object data, or clip away the volume, and then just show the kind of underlying proteins if there are any in here. And this would be nice to show kind of everything, like if you're doing this colocalization, I know we talked about Tuesday, and if you had any objects that were kind of overlapping with each other, it's going to be hard to see them if they're both rendered at the same time in the same opaque setting. So using this kind of glass feature, clipping, and all of that kind of helps you have that creativity to show the data how you want, turn on some objects, turn some off, emphasize insides of these, whatever's inside this tracing here.
So when you do the sequence, like do the rotation, the X, Y, Z are the universal frame axis, right?
It will. It's going to be showing whatever's in this viewer. So in this case, I do have, it's 3D, so it'll have the Z data as well. These are just thumbnails, so these are kind of like just really like snippets of where it's going to go. rather than screenshots. These aren't screenshots. I don't think we would be able to extract. Well, we could do like a take one of these screenshots right here and render it. If we wanted to take like one of these keyframes and just say, give me a screenshot of this spot right here, we can do that.
So what I mean is that if I zoom into a small region which I'm interested, and then I want to just rotate around that small, like a 3D volume, I can just do the add a sequence like here for the cell body. Then I just want to rotate around the cell body. Like in this view, the horizontal view. Can we do that?
Yeah, let's try it. I think oh no, here we go. Here's the starting point. I have it loaded here.
Yeah, now the rotate is rotate through the like the center point of the whole 3D volume. If I just want to focus on the cell body and just rotate around its surface, will that be able to do?
Yes, we are able to. Let me look into that because I'll show you the help menu right here. There is a way we can do it. I just have not played around with it. Where's my help menu? And I was actually just looking at this beforehand. There is a right here. It says currently an object selection is not a setting in bookmark saves. You can work around this using an object tag. So we should be able to create an object tag on this object of interest here. And then we should be able to say, based on this, if I double click it, you can't see the bounding box, but there is one. You can see that it's highlighted around this object. We should be able to say, around this object right here, rotate around here. I'll write that down because I don't know off the top of my head how to do that, but I will send a follow-up with some screenshots and showing the step on how to implement that. Rotate. Make sure that I get you that information. But yes, you should be able to kind of pick a region like this and then just rotate around it like this. Actually, maybe try it one more time.
Or I can just rotate in here and add the keyframe that will.
We could do, yeah, we could do individual keyframes. So I'll add this here. And then we could kind of do something like this, but there should be a way that we can do it with, if I kind of go back to this top point right here, this is kind of like a way that we can cheat the sequence frame. And right now it's going super slow. But you can see it kind of shifts a little bit. It's kind of moving around this, but it's not quite moving around it. It looks like it's sort of moving around like maybe a region right here. So that's where having the sequence helps to kind of stabilize this a little bit. We can kind of work around it. If we do more keyframes, we can get it to be pretty close, but the sequence is going to be the better option, I think. So let me make sure that we can do this with selecting like an object, and if there's not, then I'll think of another way that we can get the same thing worked into the video. Let me see. So we went over clipping, and then just to reiterate, I kind of alluded to it, but I just want to mention that any of the views that we see in here, so for example, you can see that this data is has a pretty good contrast, nothing super saturated. If we did something like this, and then we played our whole, wait, do this here, a keyframe. Here. It will also recognize the changes that we can make in the this background intensity. So this could be also another way. Instead of clipping, you can just kind of do like a slow fade from your the background, like the histogram that's loading this data, so of your volume. So either one works. And then, okay. Close this one right here. Another thing that we can do is there's this 4D lighting and projection setting. If you really want to get you want to unleash your inner director, if you will, we can turn this on to be full, and you can see that when I adjust this, it's going to change the lighting, if you will, around this. So if we wanted to kind of reduce this intensity, and this would also work for, let me turn down this. Here. I'll turn this to be 8. So now you can see that it's also going to adjust the lighting, if you will, on the objects themselves, in addition to the volume. Also the direction of where that light's coming from. So the azimuth direction. And then what's called elongation. So a lot of lighting options there. This can be useful if you want to emphasize certain regions, depending on your view. Like if you want to emphasize maybe the front part of this and ignore some of the back regions, or you can just turn it off and keep everything pretty consistent. And kind of like one tone throughout it all.
So if we if we only look at the surface rendering object, can we kind of fly inside it, like for this cell body part?
We can look inside of it by changing our view, our opacity of our object itself. So we have this glass rendering that'll allow you to look inside of it. And so you can see we have our cell body here, but you can also make out the branches that are extending from the cell body inside.
But can we kind of fly the point of view to be fly inside the cell body? It's like a ball. If this is a ball, we can we go through the surface and fly into it? Yeah.
Let me, where is that? I think that's Z. Or maybe perspective. One sec. Let me find where. Yeah, there we go.
Can we make the not transparent? I just want to see if it's all opaque, but I can still fly into it. Then we can see the inside wall.
Yeah, I haven't tried
it. Just in the case if the red object is a cell and we have some like a pentacles, the other object inside it, we can kind of have a movie go inside it. Then we can see the other object, but we can also see the background as the cell, like a membrane wall.
Yeah, it looks like you can. It's hard to make it out, but you can make out kind of these ridges right in here.
So
it's a little hard to see. At my center point. So in here, you can kind of make out the center of this, but it's a little hard to make it out. We could, though.
What do you mean to make it out?
Can you repeat that question, Lai?
What do you mean you said to make it out?
I have trouble. So I can see right here, we're going into the cell body, and now it looks
Yeah.
like it, but I can make out that I can see that we're kind of inside of it, but I'm having trouble kind of getting an understanding of where we are inside of it. You know what I mean? And the reason
Okay.
I know that we're inside of it is because I can make out some of these like fine ridges, or these like, so this is all smooth right in here. And then as I go into it, I can make out some of these like ridges, curves, everything that is shown from
Mm.
the here. I can make it out that we're now inside of it.
Mm.
But it's a little hard to kind of see where we are. So we can, or if so, give it a try. Otherwise, we can also do while we're moving into the like as we're zooming in, we can also say change this to like this glass view. So now you can see how we can make out these like I don't know, this ridgy area on the inside. Um, but it's all on the outside, right? We just see it's smooth. So when we zoom in and we get into it, now we're inside of it. And I can tell because the inside, I see all these spiky curved regions. And then we can turn this to be solid. And now I can see we're still inside of it. So yes, we can do it, but maybe it would be more useful or easier to see if we had like a really, really large object rather than like this tiny small cell body. But yes, we can. Yeah. And that would be adjusting this perspective right here too.
Okay, thanks.
Can adjust the Z scaling, so kind of how elongated that we want this structure to be. It can look pretty interesting. Like really, really elongated. So you can get, you know, bring out your inner director and if you want to do something like this with crazy perspective, go ahead. And then I don't think I touched on these points here, so let me reset this back to normal. I think a white point would be um, here it's sec. I think it's because I zoom in, the shadows are not coming through. Ah, I have this up. Okay, now I think we should be able to get something here. Oh, okay. That's a good point. So there are two different options here, shine for volume and shine for geometry. Volume is going to be your intensity information, so the based off of the histogram. So if I do this shine for volume, that is what should be adjusted. So let me turn off these objects. So we're adjusting the volume data here. Bring this back up. So we have this white point, which I think will be centered around this, the center of the volume. We have our shadows here, which I'm not seeing make a huge change. Shine of the volume. not a huge change. And then if we bring back on our object, this is where the geometry, shine of geometry comes in. So any of these structures that we create, like these objects here, are going to be called geometry. So objects, and then volume is going to be your actual pixel information. So click off this, and then you can see you can adjust that shine on the objects. Wondering if I just turned off shadows. Yeah, I'm not sure where the shadows is coming in, but might just not be super obvious in this image set. Yeah. You said it all. Another thing that we can do is, and maybe this is actually where if we wanted to do that rotation around a center object, maybe this would be the better option. Because we can just click one of these axes and then move around it. So you see, you can click this object here. Is a way that we can set this as our center point and our focal point. Just have to try for a second. And if I can't figure it out, then I will kind of getting there. So it's keeping it as a center point here, but it's keeping it center to our viewer rather than center to our the object itself. So I will look and see if we can rotate around an object boundaries. But if we do want to create a like a controlled movement around a certain axis, instead of adding the sequence, we can then just say, here we go for our start. Let me just manually move this across the Z, pick your end, and that'll kind of be a way around it too. Okay. I think we did 40 render settings. The other option here is kind of the shine through option. So right now I have it at 100%, so it's going to be pretty opaque. It's kind of like another layer that you can add onto this standard material or glass material for visualization. So I can reduce the shine down and have it as sort of like a glass rendering. But they're kind of over, they're kind of seem to be similar effects. Same thing with here, we can show this legend here. Any of these other backgrounds here, if you want to bring that orientation back in. It's a little redundant here than with some of the other options. You can also change the background of everything. So we had it left to default at black, but maybe you want a different color background. You can also do a gradient here. I have not selected this gradient, so I'm curious what this will do. I do something like maybe magenta. Will this give me, oh yeah. Kind of see it's brighter in some regions. Looks like it's darker magenta down here, lighter, brighter magenta up here. Gradient. Now you can see it's just one single color. We'll put this back to black. And then this for a preview would be reflected in kind of how we show these example. If we were to play the movie before exporting, this will be attached to our data here. So kind of think of this like, if you remember within our, I'll pull back up, within our analysis panel, it's going to take a second for this to load it. But in the analysis panel, for each one of the operators, they had those eyeballs, if you remember, where you can kind of show what the result would be before you run it. This is kind of the same idea. We're not actually implementing the rendering, we're just kind of building it. So this is not exactly what it's going to look like if we were to export and create the movie. But we can get close in how it looks by adjusting this up to quality. So when I do play this, this will be a little bit more emphasizing on it looking nice rather than performance, where it's just going to run through, make sure that it runs smoothly. So kind of the same idea is that, just going to show really quick, as this eyeball function here, where it's kind of showing we have this performance or speed and accuracy, same idea as performance versus quality.
So for the movie, can we just do a screenshot of the movie? Like, I just want to record it, what I've done. I can zoom in, zoom out, kind of rotate. I just want to like record the screen.
Yep, we can take these. So this whole movie, let's say I want to reduce this to like, and then if we wanted to export this as an actual movie, we could do a screen grab, but it's probably not going to be the best result because we're just taking in whatever we see on the screen here. It's a little jagged, it's not smooth. And part of that is because we are
what I mean is I don't create any keyframe. I just wanted to record what I'm doing.
We would have to build it through this keyframe. If you wanted to
okay.
by yourself, like
it's like it's kind of it's kind of record what I do on in the software. Just
so it would not be able to do that without if you had another app, like if you had Teams or even built into Windows, they have a screen grab function where you can say pick this ROI, and then you can go and manually do this all yourself and have it screen grab. That's totally fine. It does not, in Arivis Pro, it's not going to natively record this ROI. It's only going to record all of those movements if we export it as a movie in here. But you can do a screenshot using another software or the native Windows screen recording, and then do, I'm going to move through here. Now I'm going to turn off my objects. Now I'm going to raise my histogram settings here. I'm going to zoom in. You can have a software do all that. Windows record all of that. Okay. But when we're done creating the movie, and let's say we do want to export from what we had with it here, we would save number one, and then it'll save it again as with everything else, like pipelines, objects, everything is tied to this .sis file. So we can save this here, and it'll be saved to this .sis file, but we can also export this and save it as its own. If we need to reload it or send it to someone else, we can do that too. And then when we're done, let's say we're happy with it, we can hit this export movie. And there's a couple of options. So it's going to ask where you want the data to be saved. In this case, we'll just say same folder as data set. Pick the name of this, and it's going to export natively as a MP4, but there's also, you can export as a AVI and PEG-4. You can pick how well you want it to render. Again, I would probably, unless there's some specific reason, I usually just default to the 1080p, and then you can pick how many frames. So I'll stick with 30 for now, just because it does take a little bit of time for the software to create this movie. and say large. Can also add a timestamp to this too, so people know how long the video is. So this is 20 seconds. We can have that attached to.
I'm not familiar with the video format. Is the H.264 is compatible with the PowerPoint?
I am not sure. Let's see. I cannot type PowerPoint. I think so. Yes, MP4 files encoded with H.264. So this is H.264 and it has that .mp4. So yep, it should be native to. It should be by PowerPoint.
Okay, thanks.
So let's see what this looks like. So I'm going to hit record. It does take a little bit of time, and that's also the reason why I would recommend doing this at 1080p. Because if you're doing it at 4K, you're essentially more than doubling the amount of time that it's going to take to load it. This is going to take a little bit of time to create this movie, again, because this is all just your preview. It's not actually.
What is the slice means? There are two. That's a two channel, the green and the red. Is that? Is that rendering slice 1 of 2?
Yeah. I'm wondering if it is a object layer and then a volume layer, because we do have both.
Okay.
That's what I think it is, because it's handling them as separate objects.
Okay.
Oh, they are separate kind of tags to it. So we have our, kind of like how it says with tree versus volume. My guess is that it's the same thing here.
This is quite slower.
Yep. It does take a little bit of time. It does have to kind of generate and create this movie. And building up all these keyframes. So that's why I would probably recommend going with 1080p, because even past 1080p, most people don't have a resolution to kind of see that extra pixel information anyways. I would recommend, if you are going to, if you want something to look a little bit nicer, I would probably just increase the frames. So I'm going to stop this just because it takes a little bit of time. But I can also just generate this movie and then send it to you afterwards, just so you can see what it looks like. But that's not what I want. Let's export movie here. What I would recommend is viewers will probably get a better experience by using or be able to see the data better, and it'll look nicer to them by having a higher frame rate rather than a higher resolution. So you can start with 30 frames per second, but you may also benefit from saying, use 60 frames per second, because it'll essentially be, the transitions will essentially have twice the amount of data between them. I'll go ahead and do it to 50. I'll let this go and record, and then I can send this to you with the screen recordings whenever it's done. This way you can have an idea on what it looks like. Trying to think if there is anything else that I'm missing with this.
Just wondering, it's probably too much to ask, but since if we have a neuron object here in the red, can we select a point at the a cell body, and I select another point at the end of the dendrites, which we can ask it to just create a movie, just go through the surface from point A to point B?
Yep, we can do that by adding in those keyframes. So let's say I wanted to start here at the cell body and maybe move up like through this axon or dendrite right up here. Let's see how that would look. Or maybe we'll do it on, this is an axon, we'll just say something like this. So give me a second while I adjust in the right area. So I just search for here. Oh, wait, I don't want to do that. Go back. Go back here. Get it in the right angle. I do want to.
My question is that can we do that without manually setting the keyframes? Just if it's possible.
We would have to manually set the keyframes.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
add the.
Yeah.
Oh no, what I'll do? I'll do this.
Yeah.
I'll add it to the and just show you that we can do it. Where is that? Because it's going to interpolate the rest for us. So add this keyframe here, and then we would pick our ending point. So if I want it to kind of fly like this, it's going to interpolate that for us. So yes, we can, but we do have to add those individual keyframes.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks. In order for the software to know how to kind of, it's just going to recognize, here's point A, point B. Let's figure out the best way to get there. That kind of covers movie making. There's a lot of flexibility with this, but there's not a ton of it's relatively simple in terms of how you'd implement it. A lot of different ways, a lot of different like options, but you're not kind of bogged down with a million different keys and having to control all of those steps. But like you kind of mentioned before, like if you do want to just run it yourself, then you can have Windows record your screen while you manually do it yourself. That's also an option too. You have any other questions?
I guess that's all. That's all for now. It still just needs more practice.
Yeah, the movie making is a little. It's so subjective depending on what people show and how they want to show it. But that being said, if there's, if you have someone who's trying to figure it out and they really, I want to show this and show this and show this, and they're not quite sure how to make a movie that looks like that, we can also work with them to just, send us an email. We can kind of think of it on our end, and we can always just create the storyboard and send that over, kind of the steps to create that movie they had in mind.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Stop this recording.